Well, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, we're excited
It's
about
awesome.
that. We've talked about this for a long while.
Yeah, a little while.
A little while. So that's
How long now? Ever since just started the journey, or
Yeah.
Yeah, at least
Well, we were talking about it like
a year or two,
ago. Yeah.
year or two ago,
Oh, wow.
whenever
Okay.
you started. Just
Yeah.
about the idea about bringing people in and letting them tell their story
Yeah.
about, coming to faith or just even a perspective on different stuff.
Mhm.
So just always good to talk to Gen Z people.
Yeah, right.
Especially when you're someone my age,
The
so
freaky Gen Z, right?
trying to understand what's going on.
Mhm.
Explain to me the language you guys are talking
Yeah,
about
right.
or using. So that's good. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey and home life, and eventually we're going to get to you coming to become a Christian. But yeah, kind of what's your journey been like growing
So
up?
were you gonna go since like the beginning?
Wherever you want to start.
I was born on a.
Yeah.
All right. Back in my day.
It was a cold winter day.
Well, I would say it started a long time ago. I'd say a year and a half ago. In my whole life, I've been to church with Jonah,
Uh-huh.
church with family. I've had all of that, right? And in my personal opinion and belief, it's just you can't have others kind of dictate that. And as much as I like, especially since I'm
Force it
with
upon
God
you,
now,
you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I want to spread it to as many people as
Right,
possible.
right.
But it just can't work that way,
Mhm.
because I've had that come onto me, and it couldn't work. It couldn't work. I didn't hear God talk to me. I didn't see it work out at all for me or anything
Mm-hmm.
until it got to one day, and this might be a little explicit for this, but it's just how it went. But marijuana, alcohol, nicotine, all of that I would be doing every single day, nonstop, during school, after school, all the time. I've always wanted to be successful, but obviously, good habits will compound like anything else in life, and bad habits will do that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided one day, I saw, actually, this is how it really started. I saw Cliff Netchell, I think that's his last name.
Yeah. On video, on YouTube.
I saw
Yeah.
a video of him talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it, and the way he explained it and did all that, I never really kind of thought of it in the ways he kind of discussed about.
Yeah.
And I was really interested, and I'm like, okay. So I really tried praying for the first time.
Mm.
I've prayed before.
Mm-hmm.
I've said prayers, but I've tried to do it in a way like everyone else did.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of a formula.
Yeah, kind of the same formula, but that never worked for me.
Yeah.
I really talked to him,
Yeah.
And I saw another video, and this was like right after I saw that, before I did the prayer. But it was like these college people kind of like doing this little like skit thing, where a lot of people are getting on their knees immediately and saying, "Oh God, forgive me for doing this, forgive me for doing this," and the guy's trying to play as like Jesus, and he's trying to say like, what, you can just be honest with me. I want
Right.
you guys to talk to me.
Be normal.
But then they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I did that." They're like doing this like funny little video. And I was like, "Huh, interesting," because I've always tried doing just that formula and just didn't work for me. So it set me off for a long time.
So anyway, you were saying, but let me ask before you continue. What was your church background then? You said you guys went to church.
Actually, my first church I went to, and I'm not trying to say anything, negative on any other religions or anything like that, but it was a church that I got invited to all the time, a Mormon church.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of certain things that were being taught there that purposely made me just not really comfortable,
Okay.
and I didn't really understand it very well. And it didn't seem personal, like
Okay.
the way I have a relationship with God, really.
Okay.
It didn't, it's very hard to explain, 'cause especially since I was so young, it was so long ago. But yeah, I kind of just went to hang out with Elliot and his family
Sure.
and all that. You had to wear super nice clothes. You had to be formal. You couldn't really be personally yourself in
Okay.
a way.
Interesting.
It was just interesting, yeah. So that was kind of my background with that, and then I, set it off for a while, and Jonah invited me for the first time for a youth group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to go to that for the first time. But still at that moment,
You're in high school at this time.
Middle
It
school.
was-
Middle
yeah,
school?
I would say
Okay.
it was
All right.
middle
Middle
school.
school. All right.
kind of leeching into high school, but high school had slowed down. I stopped going as much, but it was youth group. But to be completely honest, I kind of just went to hang out with Jonah,
Sure.
to hang out with friends.
Sure.
I didn't have that epiphany of meeting God. Having
You
that
weren't necessarily
relationship.
searching at that time.
Mm-mm,
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
And I would pray like the others, but again, it was kind of the formula.
Just do what they were doing.
I was trying to do that.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's not going to really work for you.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
At least for me personally.
Sure.
So I just kind of went to hang out with friends. I loved everyone there.
Mhm.
I loved everyone.
Mhm.
It wasn't about that, but actually getting with God, being religious, I didn't see that
Mhm.
yet. And
Mhm.
so I just went to hang out with friends for a while.
Yeah.
And then, years pass, and this was, say a year and a half, 2 years ago now.
Mhm.
We're going to go to just, when I saw that video and I was kind of seeing that with Cliff talking about it,
Mhm.
the other video, and I'm like, okay. And I talked to him like God was like a friend, and
Yeah.
I'm full on going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I just had a discussion. I didn't say any formulaic stuff. I didn't say like just anything else that I was seeing other people do. I
Mhm.
talked to him like he was like we're talking right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, look, I keep seeing that like people say you're real, say all that. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen nothing from you. I haven't seen anything. So why should I believe in you right now?
Mhm.
Why should I believe anything you say right now? Why should I follow you like anything,
Uh-huh.
This just seems like a waste of my time. And in that moment, I just got a full-on urge, just full-on just thought in my mind that said, all right, smart guy, read my Bible. Read
Okay.
my words. And I was like, okay. All right, I got out of the prayer. I didn't even say amen yet, because still, I'm like, all right, I want to see this work. I want to
Okay.
see what's going on. And I opened it, and I immediately started just reading these words, these lessons, these everything. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And obviously, if you read things and don't put them in your life, nothing can really change.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I started putting them to the test. Every lesson I would see, I would start putting in my life slowly.
Mhm.
And when people say they want proof and evidence, that's my proof and evidence.
Okay.
It's your life.
Yeah.
If you just follow his teachings, if you follow his lessons, it will just compound into a new life. And anytime I get set back doing things that are sinful, anything like that, he'll stop talking to me, for example, and I'll get set back even more. But the moment I start following him, it immediately compounds into a better life.
Mhm.
And that has happened more and more and more. And it is not 99%, it is not 98%, not 100%. It is just infinite percent that he is real. It's proof. That's my proof.
Mhm.
And I will argue with anyone now that it's full on. It's proof. It's real. Because I've seen it happen in my life. And I've told my girlfriend this, I've told other people this. I've tried telling him about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, look, I can't just tell you this. You gotta just see and try. Like, he's religious now. He's with God now. But obviously he still continues a lot of sin.
Mm-hmm.
So probably that true relationship with God might differ. I don't really know for sure. But I have setbacks all the time still.
Sure.
I'd say 8 months ago, I was going through a bad state. I relapsed a tiny bit, and that really set me back a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened for a good week, I'd say.
Okay.
And just immediately when I was continuing the sin that I was trying to stay away from, life started compounding day and day again. It's something worse.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think that And it's unfortunate, actually, and this is kind of a dark segment, but it's reality. It's what people are. But a lot of people are Satanists, for example, because they think God made these, rules against sin. You can't do this to just be some like dictator, a lot of people say. And they like to do their free will or do whatever. That is so wrong. God has, these protections against sin to protect you. Because if you do this sin, it might feel good. It might feel good in the moment doing certain things like lust, maybe, drunkenness, doing that to yourself. But it will compound into a much worse thing as time goes. And I've seen it happen with myself. I've seen it happen with others. And God wants to protect you from that.
What do you think has been the one of the more significant things that has changed, that in terms of habits or behavior, that you feel like has really been beneficial for you because of what you've read, because of what you and your prayer life with God has spoken to you about? What's one or two more significant things that has really been a change in you?
Sobriety, I'd say, is number one. I just love having a clear head, and I think that's always what He's wanted me to have.
Okay.
And that's just one of my number ones. I'd say my true number one is loving and forgiving everybody, no matter what. That's actually my number one. Sobriety would come like second or so.
Okay.
Number one would definitely be loving everybody. I love being kind. I used to get upset and have anxiety, everything over any, bad conversation I'd have with someone, someone try to put me down or something like that. When I got, Jesus in my backbone, I can't be hurt by that. Like, just forgive, forget, move on, and I'm happy. And I just love everybody. I don't care how mean someone can be to others or to me or anything like that. I love them. I love everybody. And I think it's such a good mindset to have. And I think that's what I'm most thankful for. Second, sobriety. I think, in formal situations, like alcohol can be fine, but once you start getting to that point where you start doing to feel something, that's when it gets bad. Like Jesus turned water into wine, but did He do that to get everyone drunk? No.
Don't think so.
No. But that's the way I did it.
Jesus was not at college for a kegger
Whoa!
or anything like that.
Exactly. That was not Jesus. That was not Jesus.
I think we have our cultures mixed up in that regard. So yeah. Well, Jonah, let me ask you this, because you've watched, the journey a little bit. So what have been your observations in terms of seeing Him change over, or I don't know if change is the right word, but grow and knowledge and feeling things out and then kind of making a change, shifting gears.
Because you've been my best friend for.
You're not anymore, but you were.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I don't talk to him anymore. Yeah, I don't know who this guy is. They actually found me outside on the road. But you've seen my whole journey, so I'm actually curious. Just be full and honest, because you've seen me in terrible times. So that is a good question.
But I think it taught me that it sometimes takes time for people to come around, and because like I said, be honest, I did not think that you would become a Christian. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And so
very pleasant surprise, huh?
Yes, a very pleasant surprise. And so it just kind of taught me that, okay, I can see from the beginning of our friendship, 10 years ago, can see the process of where God was kind of doing things. And definitely within the last few years, it was kind of interesting to see how you went from, identifying more as an atheist to more agnostic, like, I think there's something out there, to, oh, okay, yeah, I believe that God is real and that God wants to have a relationship with me. When you told me that was kind of the point where I was like, oh, okay, there's something like real taking place here, and then ultimately, you are where you are. So, yeah. Does that kind of answer the question?
Well, yeah, I think so. And then I guess I was going to ask then as a follow-up then, what kind of impact did someone like Jonah have in your life as far as your recognizing that God's real, or that, maybe I should pray, or maybe I should go read the Bible? I mean, was his example or his lifestyle kind of one of those things, or was it, a major thing, or
not at all? Be honest.
Yeah, right.
Well, or him and others. I mean, because I don't know who else is in your friend group, but how significant was that in your growth, in your moving in that direction towards Jesus?
I would say that, so when it comes to just me getting the relationship with God, that was fully personal. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
To really just full on believe
Sure.
in Him, and have faith. But I would say I've seen a lot growing up that a lot of religions, they'll just, and it's true, they'll bash people for doing sinful actions or anything like that. And that happens everywhere in the world. So I thought, I'd get annoyed throughout my life, like, I have one mess up, I'm just going to get bashed, like I don't belong anywhere in these religions. It's so not true. But I would say that, even in my worst times, Jonah and his family have always been welcoming and loving to me.
They're good people. Yeah.
So I've seen that, and that did help me, open my heart out a lot to that side of things.
So what, you got baptized recently. What led you up to that decision? I mean, what made you want to do that? Because I don't think we put pressure on you to make that happen.
I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, what led you to that conclusion? Was it because of what you read, or is it because of something that you'd seen, or I mean, what led you to make that step of faith?
And this might not be for other people, it's just me personally, but I've already had a full-on solidified relationship with God. I just want to solidify it further, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I just, any step closer I can to what I wanted to do. And
good.
it just, all the love and the hope I've seen with other people, especially with my speech, how I've seen other people were coming up to me saying how that helped them. I mean, that wasn't me. That was just God and my words.
Sure.
And seeing how that's just spread to other people. That's the true power of God, I would say. And seeing that in this church, I mean, that is just the true power of God, and I haven't seen that really anywhere else in religions, or any other really churches, really. Not saying that they're all bad around, but there's maybe, but like,
we're not trying to say that either.
Yeah, definitely not.
You got to look at the camera when you say that. We're not saying that.
Right. You didn't hear it from me. But I mean, when I was just on that stage, because I actually talked to you before the baptism thing. You said it's optional to do a speech or something.
If you wanted to,
I wasn't gonna do it.
Right.
I was telling Jonah, I was like, I don't want to do this, dude.
You were like, do I have to do it?
And you probably expected he's not gonna do it. He's gonna be like, oh, thank you, right? And for some reason, I just got a full on because personally, God talks to me all the time.
Sure.
In my head, and He guides me.
Sure.
And all of that, and it's not just certain talking, it's full on wisdom, and it's helped me every single day. So I talk to God all the time now. And in the first couple months, I was trying to get closer to God. I would pray and pray again and follow Him. I wouldn't hear anything back. But then it started happening. Now it's all the time now. Right, because that's a solidified relationship. So that He was talking to me when I was, about to get baptized and all of that. And He told me to speak.
Okay.
Speak our journey. People want to hear that. People want to hear that. They don't want to just be told. They don't want to be told lessons. They don't want to be told all that. They want a personal journey to be told.
Oh, yeah.
They want to see my power being shown.
There you go.
So tell them right now.
Yeah.
I did. And I had no anxiety. I had no fear. I had no nothing. I just talked.
Yeah.
And I just let out my heart, and it worked perfectly. I've loved seeing everyone come up to me saying how that helped them a lot. A lot of people came up and said that was just really heartwarming to hear, and it helped them a lot think about their journey.
Right.
And that's what God's all about. That's what he wants.
It was all of like a minute long. It wasn't like this huge
No, it was just
sermon.
simple.
Yeah,
It was
just
simple.
this is where I'm at and what God has done.
I think it's
it's good.
perfect. And
Good
I think
stuff.
this just gave people that they saw that personal relationship being shown.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important.
Yeah.
You know, and I think just the best way that people can be with God is you got to reach out and do his teachings and just try.
Yeah.
You know.
So you've talked about prayer. You've talked about reading the Word. You're being regular in church attendance. So where are the things that God's talking to you now about in terms of continuing to grow in your relationship with Him for this coming year? You know, because you've accomplished a lot, and like you said, the last year and a half. So what's the next things that God's working on you? Not necessarily for anybody else, but just for you. What are kind of the things that God's dropping into your heart and your mind to grow?
So God wants me to follow my dreams of being successful, and that's for everybody.
Sure.
That's a lot of people actually don't talk about that. God really wants you to be successful, but a lot of people get that wrong because some people go over the top when they get successful, and greed comes into play, and it's all about that.
Okay.
And that's God, like, and this is actually, it makes me find God so much cooler, but people blame God all the time, and they get ticked about it because they're like, you know, I want all the money in the world. I want this. I want that. Like, why can't you just snap my fingers and give it to me? If he can't do that, then he's not real. You know, I want that. It's so funny because if he gave that to you all at once, if I got everything in the world right now, even how far I've come, how fast greed would kick in, you know, more sin would kick in, you know, and that's not just me, that's with a bunch of people, you know. You got to become the person that's deserving of all your dreams that you want.
You need to work for it. You need to work for it. Yeah.
Like, Jesus needs to, you know, steer while you row the boat, you know. But you gotta row. You know, you can't just let him do everything. He's gonna get ticked. He's like, dude, I'm giving you all this right now, and you're not doing.
When I make that wine for it, that's how you repay me.
Okay, let's not go there. But what's been your perspective on all this? What have you gathered from watching his growth and from has your friendship changed in because of his faith? I mean, in terms of the things you can talk about, the things that you guys can share together that are different now because of his life in Christ?
Yeah, I mean, well, it certainly has changed because we see eye to eye on things now.
Whereas you
A
used to
lot of
bash
things.
heads a little bit, or
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, definitely at the times where you were kind of going through the rough stuff there, that was, I think it put a bit of a strain on our friendship at times. But yeah, that's not really the case anymore. But, yeah.
So what would your guys' advice be for others who maybe have friends who are not Christians but are struggling or wrestling or maybe don't care at all in terms of, but you know, you've referenced to like a 10-year journey since the time that you guys have known each other first, and there are other people that probably have friendships that you know, that nothing has come out yet in terms of people's change, and not that you're trying to force anyone. You mentioned that earlier about no one can make you do that, but I know that for myself, I have friendships that are that old, if not older, because I'm way older than you guys. But
What?
yeah,
We're the old ones.
oh yeah, thank you.
They're the college kids.
But just in terms of what would you say to others who maybe are, you know, wondering if anything good's going to come about in terms of their friendships? My encouragement would be don't give up. I mean, they're your friends, and so they're your friends. I mean, but whether they come to Christ is not my job. But I mean, what's your guys' perspective? Because you're on the other side of where I'm at.
Jonah, you can go first. I know what to say.
Okay.
But
He can improve on your answer, is what he's saying. So go ahead.
You can correct me where I've gone
I
wrong.
want to hear what you say. And I go off that.
Yeah, well, I think,
Curious.
yeah, like I said, 10 years, and I think it just takes time, you know? It's not a quick thing, and it's easy to get into that mindset of wanting to see things happen quickly, and then you kind of sometimes go back to like, oh, you're just living life, and then you're like, oh, you start thinking about it again, you're like, oh, it'd be really cool to see this happen in his life or whatever, and yeah, I just persevere.
Well, it must have been discouraging when he was coming to youth group at the time, and then he quit. But you just hung in there, right?
Yeah,
Was,
yeah.
I mean, was that
I mean, it's like
discouraging a little bit, maybe, or I don't know how you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the with a lot of the drug issues and stuff like that. I mean, there was a lot of things that were a little bit discouraging.
That complicated everything.
Yeah, that complicated. So I feel like the not coming to church thing wasn't like, oh no, you know, or anything like that, because there were bigger issues going on. And
So more just me doing a bunch of the sin that you know about and seeing how it's just kind of destructing my life. Was that where it's just hurting you the most?
yeah, that's what was harder to watch. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's so much of it, at least from what I've learned, so much of just like discipleship or just ministry in general is just caring for people, you know, and not necessarily always being like, oh, I'm going to pressure someone to come to church,
right,
but understanding that sometimes people just need someone to listen to, or to listen to them, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Would you say that's made us like closer since with God now, over time compared to how it was?
Okay, now you need to improve on his answer.
Well, I was gonna say, so when we're talking about just friends who just aren't with it or anything like that, it's actually one of the things I really want to find an answer to, but I can't. It's very hard. It's very hard. You know, I have a lot of friends who aren't with it, but you know, for example, a good buddy of mine, I try to talk to him about it. I'm not trying to force it anything, because I know in his spot that's where I was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to say, you know, give this a try this out, try this, you know, see how it works in your life. And he's falling, no. I believe in science. That's all he says, but he doesn't even go deeper than that. He just says, I believe in science.
Right.
And I keep asking him, like, dude, what does that mean? You can't just say science.
Yeah, right.
God created science. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So it's really hard, because if you butt heads more and more about it, you know, probably pushes them further away from it.
Yeah.
It's really tough. And
you can't force anyone into God's kingdom. Like you'd said that before. Yeah, you can't force anyone into God's kingdom. Yeah.
And people think hell, for example, is this place that is just like, a lot of people do believe this. It is a belief a lot of people have, that God created it just because you don't worship him, just because. Absolutely not. I think when in the Bible it talks about hell being a fiery place, I think it's all metaphorical. But hell is just complete separation from God. God gave you free will, and, you know, Allie, my girlfriend, for example, let's just say I fell in love with her in the beginning. If she didn't love me back, it would be very wrong if I forced her to love me.
Yeah,
and then, you know, condemn her for not doing that. That's wrong. And a lot of people think God is that way, and it's just simply not true. Hell is separation from God. God really doesn't want that, but he can't force you to be with him for eternity.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He can't force that. He knows that's wrong. He gave you free will to choose.
Yeah.
And he wants to see, you know, his works in people, kind of see, you know, people put their heart towards it, they'll follow him and all of that, but it's all a choice.
Yeah.
Hell is just separation from that, and from God and from his love. Because if you, for example, atheist your whole life, you know, some people even, you know, despise the thought of God and all of that, why would God want you to spend eternity with him? You know, I feel like he wouldn't feel that love back or anything.
Right.
He doesn't, and he has the power to force it, but he knows that's wrong.
Right.
So when it comes to others trying to get with God, it's gotta happen personally. And you can say how much the journey has helped you. You can do it again and again. Like the best person I've seen, one of the best I've seen for trying to show others and do it is Cliff. I'd say he does really good with that.
Yeah.
But even then, people will butt heads with him, and it's got to be personal, and that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
I can try again and again, and I will. I won't ever give up on that. Trying to get as many as I can to just follow him, but you can't force that.
Right. No, that's good.
Jonah tried his whole life, and it just didn't work until I just behind the scenes.
I failed.
Well, I'm telling you, it's like impossible.
You need to fail more often. Look how successful you are.
Hey, you must achieve failure, Jonah. You must achieve failure.
Well, I appreciate you being here to share a bit of your story, and we could talk for a long time. But what are some final thoughts that you want to leave with somebody, and both of you guys, in terms of just things that you want to share in regards to this friendship, the journey, the length of the journey, as opposed to it happened really quickly, and that's I share my faith, and people, wow, what a great story, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's typically a struggle. I mean, one way or the other, whether it be with other outside issues, or whether it's just a mentality of believing that God's real. Or what's something that you'd like to share with people before, in terms of your final thoughts before we kind of sign off?
I would say for just anyone who just will hear my story, or this doesn't just go for me, it goes for anything, seeing successful business owners, people who have come a long way in certain journeys or anything like that, please try to learn how to get delayed gratification. This has been a long journey, day and night. I've had setbacks. There's been many times in my journey with God that bad things were happening over and over again, and I couldn't see them as lessons, and I'd get ticked at them. I'd be like, dude, I thought we were working together. Why are you doing this to me? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, dude, help me a little bit, please. But then I learned lessons from that and grew even more from that. So just have delayed gratification. Yeah. Please have that. I know we're all impatient. All of us are. We are in things in life. You just got to learn to have that. And that's a skill that will just help you with anything in life if you have that delayed gratification. Yeah. You got to put the work in. I didn't just snap my fingers and then God just immediately changed my life in a lot of ways. No, it's day and day. Yeah. In the next, years, the rest of my life, I'm still going to be going through it, going through tough times and reaching for that and getting better and better and better. And I mean, a rock bottom for me in the future might come again, but
sure. Well, in relation to delayed gratification, in terms of a long time process, how old are you?
I'm 21 now.
You're 21. And you're how old? 21. So in terms of delayed gratification, I'm older than that. I won't say how old, but but it seems like a long time for you. From my perspective,
it's not that long.
It hasn't been that long. But all that matters is that for you it has been, and I think that's something we need to appreciate. But I think for anyone that's of an older age that might be seeing this, they might be going, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. That it's all a matter of perspective. So that's good though. I like that though. What was your thoughts going to be?
I don't really have anything, to be honest. I can't think of anything.
I've got nothing.
After this big discussion, you don't have any... Nothing?
I had my thoughts. I shared them.
I'm actually curious, before we do end it, I've actually always wondered, when did your journey start with all that? Was it ever a personal thing for you? Did you have other people trying to force it on you in a way, like you felt that and then had that personal connection with God? Or when did that start? How did it begin?
Okay.
The tables turned.
I'm curious. I'm interviewing you now.
No. We'll shorten this up. I was very fortunate that I grew up in a Christian home, and so church was always a big part of my life, and I felt God's presence and from early on. So I'm very fortunate, and I went through high school and had issues in high school. Not anything really desperately bad, but I look back now and there were
Normal high school issues.
I think for my generation, and but when I went to college, I went to college with the ideas that I've heard this all my life, and is there really? I mean, why do we believe this stuff? Because sometimes when I'd ask at home, why do we believe what we do? It's like, well, we just do, or because. And when you ask further questions, like, we don't know, but that's just what we do. So in college, I kind of in the front end of my freshman year, I was asking, questions about our faith, other faiths, and I kind of looked at other belief systems, and whether that be Eastern religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, or Catholicism, or other, Mormonism and all that other jazz. Kind of looked at it and went, okay, well, Christianity seems to make the most sense. And so then right away I found, within a month or two of going to college, I found a Bible believing church, and I just continued to grow in my relationship with God. But I come from a science background, so one of the things in science is you always ask why, how come, what's causing this, where's the data, where's the information, and so I just kind of started applying those questions and that ideology towards my Christian faith, and just started accumulating information and started to grow, and have moved on forward from that. But I still ask the questions, why? How come? What's this based on? Is this really real, or is it true, or is it good information, or is it just people spewing church stuff? And so, and every time I investigate more about God, I come back not disappointed. I come with a greater revelation of who God is, and a sense of his power and presence. So,
awesome.
And nutshell, that's kind of where it's at. But I can bore you with more stories if you want. But,
no, I think that's great.
But I look at my life, and I'm very, very, very fortunate, and I recognize that, in that come from a really small church, humble people and places, and just a really wonderful pastor who didn't have a lot of education, but he was very biblical, very sincere in his faith. And I've been very fortunate to have some really great influences. And then I've also been able to see some really screwy stuff from a religious perspective, and had the blessing of some objectivity to be able to look at that and go, that is really screwy. I don't want to have anything to do with that, or that is just weird, or where did that come from? And so I was able to distance myself from that stuff, that which is not good. And you learn from the good and the bad. So
Exactly.
So anyway.
Awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah. So
Because I was always interested in your story when it came to that.
Yeah, well, you talk to Lori and you'll hear a whole another version of it. But,
Oh, yeah.
But her story is kind of similar in that, she came from a wonderful little church in Eastern Washington, and it's not all about the big church, and not that we're trying to promote a small church, but it's, if you have a really healthy community of people, you really grow in God's word, you grow in confidence, you become more certain in your faith. And I just think that, when you are when you have a very biblical foundation, it's hard for you to be shaken when things go off the rails, because they will go off the rails at some point, or multiple points in your life.
Exactly.
And so, but it's God's word that holds steady and secure. So we're very blessed and very fortunate. So anyway,
That's awesome.
do you have any questions?
No.
You're
That was good.
you're content.
I'm just
nothing to say.
I'm enjoying listening.
Nothing to ask. you're just happy as all get out. So.
Yeah.
happy as a clam, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Well, good. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.